Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, just gave an interview just after the release of ChatGPT 5. And what's interesting is that it's kind of support, what he mentioned actually basically supports everything that I was saying within my streams. So what I did, I've been able to highlight 7 key aspects that he mentioned. And I want to go a little bit deeper and kind of commenting what key ideas that he mentioned, and actually it will give you even a better idea of what's coming next when it comes to AI, when it comes to artificial intelligence, and everything that is related to it, basically, in a nutshell. So let's jump in. So as usually is the case, I'll put myself aside. And the first one is AI as a transformation layer. You see, Altman actually, he frames AI not as a single-use product, but as a foundational shift in how humans will work, similar to electricity or the internet. It's a little bit kind of, doing the comparison of industrial revolution versus the AI layer revolution, because you see it's a general purpose technology, so it affects everything, every industry, in the same way that electricity and internet actually really affected all the industries. I mean, I cannot find any during the during the second industrial revolution, when the electricity came, I cannot find any industry or sector that wasn't affected by electricity. That's including internet. I mean, we are an internet-based economy at this point, so to speak, with some exceptions, but they're not. They're maybe niche sectors, but everything that we use in everything what we're doing, it's internet-based. And we are moving into a economy and society will be AI based. So I mean, it's another layer on top of the others layer. I mean, internet wasn't been able to be possible without electricity, and AI will not be possible without the internet. So we are just another layer of complexity, and it will change a lot of things. And obviously, the early adopters will have the advantage. I will say they will even dominate, whatever that means. I mean, but practically speaking, they will have an advantage. They will have, something. They will be, they'll be much more powerful than those that will come a little bit later. So the only thing that I will add to this is that each time you have this new technological layers that it comes with a lot of hype, and that hype create a bust, and that hype create a boom, and then after the boom you have the bust, and that's exactly what happened to the internet. Around the year 2000, there was a boom. Everyone wanted to invest into internet, into those website, all of those pet.com, whatever it is, all those websites, all those internet companies, everyone wanted to invest in them. And then you had like the bust, actually, where basically a lot of them bankrupt because they didn't generate any revenue. But it was just a question of adoption, and the adoption cycle usually takes much more time. The market, and by market we mean people takes much more time to adapt than the technological capabilities. I mean, pets.com was a good business. They just needed to stick long enough. Instead of looking for investors and open those huge warehouses with cat dog food, they just needed to stick with the basics, bootstrap the whole thing, and just wait, through the cycle until people will adapt, and until you have social media, and buying cats, dogs food will be something that is practical, and is something that is desired on the internet. And this is something that we have today, but around the year 2000s, well, it wasn't really a thing buying any type of products, with some exceptions, obviously, on the internet. So yeah, so that's kind of the idea, from boom and bust. And right now we are in terms of the cycle, we are in the boom, and we'll see a bust where a lot of AI companies will kind of go out of business, because very often they try to release an AI product, and the market is just not ready. People are not ready to this. I mean, it takes much more time for the adoption cycle, and the best thing to do is just to wait, to bootstrap the whole thing, not taking too much investment, and just kind of flow with the wave, go with the wave, with the adoption wave, and ultimately it's going to be a successful business. So that's the AI as a transformational layer, really important. And talking about adoption, the second thing that was mentioned during the interview is the big adoption gap. What was mentioned, that despite huge hype, that's exactly what I mentioned, a very small percentage of people use advanced AI features daily. And even fewer use what I call multimodal vocal interfaces. You see, people are stuck in the chatbot mode, instead of treating basically AI like a dynamic partner, and having a vocal conversation in the way people have conversation, to discuss a specific subject, or to have a different point of view, or share a point of view. At the moment, it's just not a thing, because it's just people are not used to that. They're not used to see AI as a partner. For them, it's another piece of software that they're treating like, basically like a vending machine, so to speak. You put a prompt, you put an instruction, whatever complicated it is or not, and you expect something delicious to come out of it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it's not, because obviously AI will have a limited data to play with, and everything is obviously based on the prompt and on the instruction that AI will receive. Versus if you communicate in a vocal way, that gives much more information, and also you have this repetitive cycle in a discussion with AI, vocal discussion with AI, when AI get more and more data, and actually will adapt its pattern to give you the more relevant result for you. So all of that is kind of it's difficult. That's why we have this kind of gap, big adoption gap, is that AI offer amazing capabilities, but we people are just not there at the moment. We're not used to that, and we're not using all those capabilities that AI is offering even right now. Okay, the third aspect that was in the interview is the voice and multimodal as the next leap. Altman actually highlights that natural fluid conversation with AI, especially via voice, will change adoption patterns more than any single feature so far. It's kind of the smartphone moment for AI, basically. Um, and it's been practically and awfully underestimated, basically. Um, at the moment, we treat the voice, the voice functionality or the conversation functionality, whatever you call it, in ChatGPT as something of a gadget, something of a novelty, something that is cute. And we have some taboo around it also for some people. It's kind of not the core feature, but in reality, it is the core feature. It is the feature that gives AI its full potential. It allows AI to get as much data as possible about you, about the context of the situation, and to help you in the best way possible. Because how does AI supposed to help you if it doesn't have the full context, if it doesn't have the information or the data about the full context or on upon your standing through which you're going through. And that's the whole challenge here. What AI does, it's not that complicated in reality. The main idea is to gather that data, process it by creating a mathematical patterns, and then give you the most relevant result. Whether it could be information, it could be content, it could be, if you put it in a robot, it will be physical movement. Doesn't mean what it is. The basics are the same, basically. So voice, really important, and I agree that that's the next leap when it comes to AI. The fourth element that he mentioned in his interview was that from tools to teammates. You see, AI will shift from being a passive tool to an active teammate, prompting you with suggestions, anticipating needs, and even handling tasks basically in an automatic way. So trust, and we have basically what we have right now is that we're not treating AI as a teammate, as a partner. We're treating AI basically as a tool, as another piece of software, which kind of it is, but it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. And trust and delegation, we have basically a trust and delegation gap. That's why most people aren't ready to let AI kind of drive, so to speak, yet. And that's actually a problem. That's actually a problem because there's a lot of things that we should delegate AI, because AI see things that we don't see. AI could perceive things that we don't perceive. We perceive the reality in a very limited way. We perceive even we understand ourselves in a very limited way. We think we understand ourselves. We think we see reality in a very objective way. And on top of that, we make rational decisions. But actually, it's not the case. It's not the case because the way we were conditioned, the way we were educated since our early years, has an impact on our beliefs or our core beliefs. And very often they're not rational, they're not objective. And that's something that AI, I'm not saying that AI has no biases, that's not true, but at least AI could correct it in a way, or could open our eyes to another point of view that is kind of less biased, and we could see things that we usually don't see, and perceive things that we usually don't perceive in a much more objective way. And that's something that will change our decisions and the way we perceive and the way we operate in our society. So that's something that's really important. Next one, global talent explosion. That's something really interesting, and stick with me. You see, AI will allow individual in emerging markets to compete globally without relocation, changing the power dynamics of labor. Why do I mean by that? It has an implication for outsourcing, remote work, and global wage shift. Especially when it comes to language and skills barriers, and all of those barriers that exist right now. Even when we outsource, even when we send jobs to another countries, there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barriers, and also there's a lot of gaps when it comes to skills. What does AI? Is AI basically act as a very sophisticated translation unit. It's not just about translating from one language to another, which will be the case. It's also translating from one culture to another culture. It's also, adding skills that are not available in a specific country for a specific individual, to add them on top of what the individual is doing when it comes to execution. So just picture, let's imagine a fictional scenario. Just picture a designer in rural Vietnam who never spoke English. With AI, she can take a client brief in French, have it instantaneously translated with the cultural aspect, get AI design suggestions, and deliver polished work to a, let's say, Paris agency the same day. No relocation, no language school, no middleman, and that's the kind of situation that could basically happen in the next years. Or let's get another example. Imagine a software developer in a small town in Kenya who only code in Swahili comments. AI instantly translates his code, documentation, and even his video calls into flawless English, or even Japanese, or even both. I mean, imagine a. I mean, I know. It's kind of you think it's a little bit of science fiction and a little come. It could be even funny to picture it, but imagine a video call where you have three individuals, and each of them speaks a different language. And not only AI will instantly translate from one language to another, it will also adapt the cultural aspect of it. And all of that will happen within one video call instantaneously. Like calls into flawless English or even Japanese. And then imagine letting him work seamlessly with a Tokyo fintech company with the same skills, but now his market, is the entire basically planet because of this highly sophisticated AI translation unit. Let's take another example. It's kind of it's funny but that's exactly what will happen. That's exactly what I was saying through all my streams. That's exactly what is happening right now. Now let's say if AI breaks those languages and cultural barriers, all right, companies won't just hire locally. Obviously, they'll tap into a kind of a cheaper but equally skilled talent anywhere on the planet. That means wages and salaries in high cost countries could come under pressure, like United States, Europe, Canada, Australia, while talented people in low cost regions could see big pay jumps, especially for people that needs to execute a specific work, yeah, that's will have a big impact. And I don't think we're ready right now. I know we are outsourcing a lot of jobs, but we still, I mean, even today we have language gaps, cultural gaps, skills gaps when all of those jobs are outsourced to other countries, and that's something that we still have to deal with it. That's why in a very developed countries, um, obviously the salaries are higher. Now, the other one that was mentioned in the interview is the regulatory tensions. Sam Altman actually he notes the risk of heavy-handed regulations slowing down innovation while also acknowledging the need of guardrails basically for AI. So if we compare the open internet era versus a possible regulated AI future, it's kind of difficult. Obviously, when you try to regulate something, you make it safer for sure, but you also kind of remove a lot of the benefits of innovation and of this those kind of things of open trade and open commerce, and a lot of innovations and a lot of things that could happen will definitely will not happen or happen in a much lower scale, and it takes much more time for them to occur. So that's actually one of the things that we need to be careful when it comes to AI. But you need to have like one of the things that happened with internet, and I know even with internet there was a lot of fraud, a lot of abuse, and all of those stories about the illegal casinos that started with internet and all those illegal websites. All those things happen, but also with the openness of internet, there's a lot of companies, including Google, including all of those companies that we know right now as big social media platforms. They started because internet was open. You could do you've been able to do a lot of things under very little regulation, and that's something that we need to be careful. When it comes to AI, we need to allow AI to evolve, especially in the very early stages right now, where basically we're in the middle of a boom. We're not even past the bust, the bust time when AI will a lot of AI companies will just basically disappear. They will be bankrupt, and then we'll see the wave, the adoption curve, slowly, people will slowly adopt AI and will integrate within a daily life, whether it's professional or on a personal level. And that's something that we need to be careful about it. Another aspect that was also mentioned in this interview is the creativity multiplier. That's something that is interesting because you see, AI can massively accelerate creative projects, lowering the barrier for solo creators to produce studio quality work. That's something that requires a couple of examples. Think of an architect in a small town who used to need a whole firm to produce a photorealistic 3D building models. With AI, they can just describe the design, instantly get high quality renders, and even generate full virtual walkthrough for clients without a big team or expensive software. So we see, I mean, AI could generate a lot of things with a very, very minimal cost. That's what's called a creativity multiplier. Another example, when it comes to creativity multiplier, is the let's say you have like a solo game developer who can describe a scene and get all of the art, sound effects, and music generated at near studio quality in days instead of months. Again, generating highly, sophisticated three-dimensional environment from AI. If we just go into something a little bit different, let's say let's go for a medical field. Let's say you have a medical researcher who has an idea for a new drug. Instead of needing a huge lab and years of trial and error, AI could simulate molecular interactions, predict side effects, and design the best candidate compounds in weeks. It's like having a full research team on demand without the massive cost or time. And that's actually very interesting, because in the interview that Sam Altman gave, he actually mentioned he was describing a feedback loop where AI not only speeds each step but also learns from the outcomes to make the next step even faster and more accurate. It's basically so instead, let's put it this way. So instead of a researcher running one experiment, waiting months, then deciding the next, AI could suggest multiple experiments at once, run simulations, analyze the result instantaneously, and refine the plan in hours. And basically, over time, through this cycle, over time, this compounds, which is why he calls it a creativity multiplier, because it kind of compounds the creative effect, basically. And you're not just doing everything manually. You basically run an experiment, and it could be generating an just even, and that's true for any industry. That's even true for video games. You create a 3D dimensional environment, and on top of this, you ask AI, what could I do better? In what direction should I go? And AI proposes you some directions, and on top of that, you could even iterate even more. That's why we call it creativity multiplier. It's not only about automation. It's also about running simulation that were suggested by AI itself, where you have the biggest probability of success, or the biggest probability of getting to a specific outcome that you wanted to get to. So another example: imagine urban planning. Normally designing a new public park takes months of proposals, sketches, public feedback, and environmental studies. Like with AI, a planner could input goals, constraints, and community needs, and instantaneously get multiple 3D designs with predicted foot traffic, maintenance cost, and even how shade and wind will flow through the space. Then, based on community feedback, the AI could redesign it overnight, basically, and run new simulations, shrinking a year-long basically process into kind of few weeks, maybe even days. So you see the whole idea of AI. I mean, it's another way of doing things, basically. It's accelerating a lot of things, but also it kind of opens the door to a lot of discoveries, and also a lot of creativity. And people that are actually the most creative will actually benefit the most from AI itself. So that's it for today. So if you learned something, if you find it interesting, please put a like. It always helps. And if you have any questions, comments, don't hesitate to put them in the comment section. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.